Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Psychology Pathways with Sweetling. And as you can see today, I am not alone. I am with the ever so beautiful Micaela, and she's going to be sharing her journey with us today. But before we get into that, if you are new here, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. Don't forget to hit the like button, leave your comments in the comment section below, and also hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell so that you are notified every time we drop a video. Let's get started. Welcome to Psychology Pathways with Sweetling, where we guide future registered counselors one pathway at a time. My name is Sita Dwaba, and I am so glad that you're here. Let's begin. Hi, Micaela. How are you?
Hi, Sita. I'm good, thanks, and you?
I'm all right, thank you. Welcome to the set or online set of Psychology Pathways with Sweetling. How are you feeling?
I'm very excited to be here.
I'm glad you're excited. All right, so before we get into anything hectic, so a quick question that I like to ask all of my guests before we fully get started with the questions is I like to ask them to just tell us a little bit about themselves. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's Micaela? Where's she from? How did you get to this point on your route to becoming a registered counselor?
Oh, okay. That's an interesting question. So to start it off, I'm originally from Mpumalanga in a town called Barberton. That's my hometown. And my psychology journey started right after I completed high school. So I did my Bachelor of Health Science degree in psychology and physiology. And the funny part of that was I think for the first 2 years of the degree, I was telling myself that I'm definitely going to pursue physiology. I couldn't even consider psychology. And then in my third year, it was like a light just switched on and I started seeing psychology in a different way and I just fell in love with it. So once I got done with my undergrad at Northwest University, I then did my academic honors at Varsity College here in Gauteng. So this is how I ended up in Gauteng. And it was a good experience, but one thing I would say is I honestly didn't know the difference between an academic honors and a practical honors. So I just saw 1 year honors and I said, okay, let's apply for that. So when I was done with my academic honors, I think I'm one of many who tried knocking on the master's door, but the door didn't open, unfortunately. So due to that, I then took a gap year since I didn't get accepted for my master's on my first attempt. And then the following year, it's when I started doing research into actually trying to get to know the field of psychology, because prior to that, I think I only knew about you do your undergrad, you do your honors, you do your master's, and then you boom, you're a psychologist. So, due to that gap year, I was actually pushed to start researching and exploring different avenues that psychology offers. And I actually met a clinical psychologist at one of the hospitals back home, and he told me about the Registered Counsellor program. And he was talking about how you can do this program and you can register with the HPCSA and then you can actually work within the field, because I went there looking for volunteer opportunities, but he explained to me that due to our very strict ethical and confidentiality rules, it's not very easy for you to volunteer in that space if you're not registered, which now actually makes sense to me. So after I found out about the BPsych Equivalent Programme, that's when I applied in 2024. But at that time, I was also volunteering at a child welfare in Nelspruit, and it was a really amazing experience getting to work within that type of field, mainly interacting with social workers and their population that they were assisting. So that was a nice experience for me. And I then applied for the BPsych Equivalent Programme. I got invited for selections. I met you on the first day of selections. And it was so nerve-wracking. I remember looking around Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was 100 of, no,
It's
50 of us. It
50.
was 50, yes. And I remember how they were talking about how 50 will then become 15.
Mm.
So I was there like, yo, Lord, I'm wondering if I'm going to be part of the 15, but God willingly, I was part of the 15, and here I am today. So it's been quite a journey, but honestly speaking, I wouldn't change anything leading up
Mm.
to this moment, yes.
Sure. I think you ended up answering a lot of the questions that I had following that one. But that's good because now I kind of like have a bigger picture of who Micaela is and how she
Yeah.
fits into, the space and all of that. I'm just curious to know, are you still interested in masters, and what masters were you interested in? And or are you now content with registered counseling, or do you still in future want to pursue masters?
I was always interested in clinical psychology. I don't know why specifically, honestly. It just, for me, it aligned more with the type of person that I am. And I like the aspect of getting to diagnose clients and the long term counseling aspect as well. So the goal for me was always clinical psychology. At the moment, I do think it's still the goal, but for now, I would actually enjoy taking a few years to go and gain practical experience in the field and actually use our qualification as future registered counselors. So for now, master's is at the back seat, but I think for the next maybe 3 to 5 years, but it's still an end goal.
Okay. All right. So, what made you feel, you know what, let me apply for the BPsych equivalent instead of maybe attempting masters again and giving it like a shot again?
I think it was the fact that I had applied twice in 2 consecutive years and I didn't get accepted. And also, I felt at the time that my age could have been a factor because when I first applied, I was 21 years old. And then when I
Okay.
applied the second year, I was 22 years old. So I did actually consider that my age could have been a limitation because I was still quite young at the time. So that's why I decided to pursue the BPsych equivalent. And the more I did research on the BPsych equivalent, the more I saw how it has so much of range. I mean, you can do psychometric assessments, you can do individual counseling, you can do group counseling, psychoeducation. And I think the thing that appealed to me the most was the fact that registered counselor services are so much more affordable to the community. So I definitely was intrigued by that.
Okay. All right. Thank you for so much for sharing your journey, Michaela. I think every time we're in class, yes, we get to interact, but we never get to interact at this level where you actually ask a person, how did you get here? Why this program? Why not the other one? Um, is there future in the other programs as well, and all of that stuff? So I love having these conversations because I get to know you guys a little bit more. So my next question for you is, what is the application process like for you? So the application process for the BPsych equivalent program.
Okay, so my experience of how I found the whole process to be. Okay, so the online application, I don't know if I was overthinking it or what, but I found it a bit challenging because some of the questions I wasn't sure if I should answer it very with like a rich description of what it was asking me to, or if I should just give like short responses. But then thankfully I had a friend who was already doing the BPsych equivalent. So I reached out to her and I just asked her that basically when you're filling out the application form, do you give as much information as you can or do you just get straight to the point? And she said, honestly speaking, just do whatever feels naturally to you. So then that was how I did the online application. For me, I think the selection process was very interesting going into it. I had never experienced selection weeks prior to that. So I didn't even know what to expect. I just got there and I found a room full of people and they were dividing us into groups and telling us we're going to do group work, group activities. And I was thinking, oh, okay. It's not But I actually found it so interesting. I genuinely enjoyed the first group activity we had. So we were given an ethical dilemma, and I don't remember it specifically, but it was something along the lines of your client who you're seeing for counseling was getting a special discount, and now their financial situation has changed. So, do you keep the discount or do you change it according to their new financial circumstance? So it was very interesting because there was 8 of us in the group, and everyone was just talking, talking, talking. So it was about finding the balance between saying something with value and not staying too quiet. So I think that was more of the challenge there. But I actually did enjoy it, getting to hear other people's perspectives and seeing how they would actually manage the ethical dilemma, because I feel like all 8 of us had different perspectives for the case itself and how we would handle it. So that was interesting. And then the second group activity of the day was the one that we did together, the role play. I think that one stood out for me the most because initially I felt so nervous and I was thinking, yo, let me not mess this up. They're watching us, the panel is watching us, you need to get it right. And it just, I felt like it flowed so seamlessly. I don't know if it was because we were interacting or what, but I really felt like it flowed so seamlessly and it all came together so beautifully. So by the time I left, I had that confidence in my heart. I was like, I have a feeling I'll be back for the individual interviews.
Mm.
I think the individual interviews were the most nerve-wracking because it's a panel of people all watching you, and with the group activities you could kind of hide behind other people, but now it's just you, yourself, and you sitting in that room and they're all watching you. And I think in the beginning my nerves got the best of me because I do remember my hands shaking and my voice was shaky and I was stuttering a bit. But as it went on, I do feel like it got a bit better. But overall, I would say that the whole application process for BPsych Equivalent, I do understand why it is the way it is, because it got to test how you interact with others, and then from there, how well you represent yourself and why you actually want to do the BPsych. Because a lot of the questions that they asked us wasn't just simply, oh, who are you as a person, but it was also linked to why do you want to study this course? Why has it appealed to you specifically as a person? What would your contribution be into this field? So, yeah, looking back on it now, I'm really thankful for it.
Mm. Sure. Thank you so much for walking us through that journey. I think anybody who's watching can literally take themselves, put them into every single part of the journey you just described and kind of be able to prepare themselves. Because I know that there's also there isn't a lot, but like there's quite some content with regards to the master's selection programs, especially the clinical masters, because we've got the amazing likes of Dr. T. His channel is so educational. Hey, he does a lot of these videos where he prepares individuals for masters, in clinical psychology, counseling psychology, in fact, all of the fields within the field of psychology, but his focus most of the time is the masters. And we've kind of heard conversations around selections for masters, and I don't think we expected the BPsych equivalent selection to be as rigorous as it is, because we thought surely it can't be as bad as what masters could possibly be, and then you get into it and you realize it's just as hard.
It is actually, but then I feel like once you're on the other side, you understand why it is the way it is. So it's more like a learning curve.
Yes. Sure. Thank you so much for sharing that, Micaela. My next question for you is, what do you wish you knew had known before applying?
What do I wish I had known? I think I wish I would have known what the program itself entails in more detail. Because yes, I know when you go onto the website, it does tell you that, okay, the first 12 months is coursework and then 6 months practicum. But then I honestly didn't know with the practicum, are you going to be placed in Gauteng? Are you going to be allowed to be placed in your hometown? I was hoping for that. So it was a lot of uncertainty going into the practicum aspect. I feel like with the coursework, it was very straightforward. You attend your classes, you do your assignments, that's fine. But I think it would have been a bit better for me if I had a more clearer idea of what practicum actually would look like and what would have been expected from us, because I also didn't know that we would be balancing your counseling hours and assignments. So yeah, that was quite a surprise.
Mm. Sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. Hopefully, now other people will kind of have an understanding of what it could possibly look like. Obviously, it's very hard to describe it in its fullest or it's in its entirety as to what it looks like, because it looks different for every single individual, and we all experience it differently. But yeah, I think we definitely all wish we knew what it's going to be like. My next question for you is, what has surprised you the most about the program?
What surprised me the most would be how easy it was to apply the knowledge and the skills we learned last year into the field. Because I think last year, when you're just learning all these concepts and learning these things, yes, it is interesting and you're gaining a deeper understanding. But I feel like it was only until this moment when I went into practicum where I was like, aha, that light sort of clicked for me, and it started making sense that, oh, so when you look at ethical considerations, this is where it plays out. When you look at multiculturalism, this is where it plays out. So now that I'm experiencing practicum, I would actually say that I do feel that SACAP specifically, they do have an excellent way of ensuring that you are able to apply what you learned in class into the field. So yeah, I think that was the most interesting thing for me.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. But what would you say was your biggest challenge? So, from the entire 18 months of the program, what would you say was your biggest challenge?
Would this be course-wise, or can it be personally as well?
Even personal, while you were going through the program.
I think for me, personally, the biggest challenge was just trying to keep up with everything. I think I don't know if it's a good thing or a negative thing, but I am someone who likes structure and order, and I will plan 6 months in advance if I am able to. So I think a lot of times that uncertainty about practicum, because when you start practicum, you have no way of telling how it's going to play out. You don't know when you're going to have all your hours. You don't know if you're going to have all your hours. You don't even know how the next 6 months are going to look at the site that you placed at. So for me, I think my biggest challenge was just learning how to be flexible. I feel like the whole practicum experience really pushed me to learn how to change the plans I had in mind and adapt where necessary in order to make it work, instead of dwelling on, oh, this didn't go according to my plan. So although it was challenging, I do feel like it was really rewarding for me, because now I do believe that I'm able to be more flexible when it comes to certain things. I'm not that rigid anymore.
Sure. Yeah, I think everybody is coming out of this practicum, or out of the practicum component of our course different, stuff that you've learned, stuff that you've unlearned, and a lot of areas where you've grown. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. What advice would you give a prospective student?
The advice I'd give them is to actually take the time to do in-depth research and see if what you're applying for, even if you're applying for this course specifically, see if it aligns with the person that you are, and see if it is actually something that you can see yourself doing in the next few years. Because 18 months of study is a long period of time, and imagine getting to the end and you're like, actually, I'm not sure if this is the field I want to be working in. So I think doing as much research as possible will be the best thing. And also just taking time to learn yourself as an individual. I feel like coming into spaces like this, already having an idea of the type of person that you are, it helps a lot, because now you're not going through a change where you're first asking, who am I as a person? But it's, okay, this is how I am. How can I make it work and incorporate myself into my space? I think there was also another added layer for me is I was so focused on the academic component that once I got to practicum, the first question I had was actually, who am I at the moment, and what type of future registered counselor do I want to be? How can I incorporate my own qualities into the field? What can I do to reach that person whom I'm envisioning myself as? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's hope that they're taking the advice. Obviously, take what applies to you, and what doesn't, then you leave. What misconceptions do you think students have about this particular program?
I think a lot of students often view it as a stepping stone to masters, honestly.
Mm.
And I know even with my story, it's very easy to take away the main message as, oh, you didn't get in for masters, so you did this. But it actually isn't. I do believe that everything happens for a reason, and the BPsych equivalent is it's really an interesting program. Like I said before, you can do so many things within this program, and the biggest component is community engagement, which we don't really get with master's applications. And I do think that a lot of students see the BPsych equivalent and they see the 16 months and they think, why should I devote myself to 16 months when I can just go and do an academic honors for 10 months and be done with it? So, yeah, I don't think a lot of people actually know what the BPsych equivalent itself entails. I myself didn't even know about it until someone told me. So, I'm also very thankful that you are doing this whole initiative, because like you said, there's not a lot of videos out there that speaks about the BPsych equivalent. There's not a lot of information out there about the BPsych equivalent. So I actually don't blame people when they usually are reluctant to even apply for it, or when they do view it as a stepping stone to masters, because how can you really compare something when the information is so limited?
Sure. Thank you so much, Micaela, for sharing that. And I think that's the biggest misconception. I think all of us have heard from people who are interested in applying for the program that, oh no, I'll just get into the BPsych equivalent just until I can get into masters. So yeah, it doesn't mean that if you come into this program, obviously, that you can't now go and do masters, or you can't pursue masters. You definitely can, but what are the chances that you're going to want to go and still pursue masters after getting into this program? And not to say that in future you might not, but immediately. I haven't heard of a lot of people. Some people may have, but the moment they get into practicum and they realize what it actually looks like to be in the field, they realize there's so much you can do in this field, and it's quite flexible, and they realize that being a registered counselor is you're not a mini psychologist or psychologist light. You're a registered counselor, and a psychologist is a psychologist, and we all work together as a multidisciplinary team, So thank you so much for clarifying that. And my last question for you is, if you could change one thing about your experience, what would it be? I hope this is not a deja vu question.
Honestly speaking, I wouldn't change anything. I'm honestly so grateful to even be in the BPsych equivalent program. I mean, I don't remember the number, but I remember when we came for selections, we were told that I think 400, something along those lines.
450.
Yes, 450 people applied. And from those 450 people, 50 people were called for selection week. And then from those 50, I think it was 30 were called for the individual interviews.
I think it was 35.
Yes, and then from those 35, 15 were ultimately chosen to be part of the BPsych equivalent 2025 cohort. So the fact alone that I was chosen to be one of those 15 people. I honestly can't attribute it to anyone else other than God. And I do believe that this is my purpose, and I was chosen for a reason to be part of this cause. And I really am so grateful to SACAP. I know this sounds like me vouching a lot for SACAP, but they really do have a good way of ensuring that what you've learned in class, you get to apply it in practice. And I've just been enjoying the journey so much. Practicum has been very, very, very challenging, especially on my sleep, but it's been worthwhile. And honestly speaking, I wouldn't change anything because I feel like once you change something, you automatically alter the result. So
Yes.
if I could change things before, I don't think I would have been the person who I am now 6 months later. So even though it was hard and there were challenging times, I honestly believe that every single minute, every single counseling session, every minute spent in practicum was worth it. Sorry. So I wouldn't change anything. Starting from the selection process up until now, I would do everything the same.
Mm. Sure. Thank you so much for sharing that, Michaela. I think it's yeah. I really resonate with your answer of saying you wouldn't change anything, because how then would you have become the Michaela that you are today if it wasn't for all those challenges? Even the mistakes. Sometimes we want to change the mistakes so that we can do the right thing. But even those mistakes and the consequences to the mistakes are some of the things that make us who we are now, and even make us better, or even better professionals, because then we can relate with clients, we can relate with communities, because these are people. And unfortunately, when you're a human, there's going to be faults, there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be a lot of growth, a lot of uncomfortable, growth. So thank you so much for sharing that. I hope everybody has taken something from this conversation, something that they can apply in their journey of applying for the program. Yeah, and I know with SACAP, the program is already open. It opened on the 1st of July. And I know a lot of people are preparing to put in their applications. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's closing in September. If
So somewhere around there.
Yes. So a lot of people are actually preparing themselves for these applications. So I'm hoping that this information is really going to help them. But I also want to say thank you so much to you, Michaela, for taking time out of your busy schedule, because I know you're very busy, especially right now, as you wrap up everything. So thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come and sit with us, share some wisdoms, share some knowledge, from the ground, and just even share just a part of yourself with us so that we can learn and grow and improve ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tita. Thank you for having me. And once again, I know I said it before, but thank you so much for this whole initiative that you're running. I do think it will impact a lot of lives. And I don't mean to sound like the BPsych Equivalent Ambassador, but this is a very amazing program. And when you look at it, it's just 18 months, but you walk out with a qualification. You walk out with being eligible to register for the board exam and to be a trained and qualified professional. So what more would you want than that? It's some food for thought.
Yeah, and the psychology journey isn't linear, and it's not easy, hey? So getting to this point, I think everyone needs to be proud of themselves for getting to this point, even getting to a point where you decide to apply for the program. You need to be proud of yourself. It means you've made it through undergrad, which in itself was not easy. And for some people, you've made it through academic honors, which in itself was not easy, So you need to be proud of yourself and believe that you can make it, into this program, or even any other professional program within this field. So yeah, thank you so much for all the encouragement. I hope people will watch and see how they can apply, what they can apply in order to prepare the best application possible. And just a reminder to everybody, the best application possible is putting your best foot forward and being yourself to the fullest. They're not looking for a pretend you or what a registered counsellor is supposed to look like or what could possibly look like. They're looking for the best you. They're looking for you. If you were to look at our cohort, for example, each and every single person in this cohort is completely different. We are all different. If I could put everybody in a panel, interview, which I would have loved to do, maybe we can do in future as well, like where we just have like a panel discussion, maybe even here on Teams, we just all log in and we have a discussion. You guys will see how each and every single person is different and how the public can resonate with each and every single person. So they're not looking for something particular, they're just looking for you to be the best version of yourself. So all the best in preparing. All the best, Micaela, in completing your practicum and writing board exams and registering. I can't wait to see you doing amazing things in the field and being an amazing registered counsellor, imparting into communities as well as individuals.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you once again for having me.
All right. Thank you so much to everybody that's watched this episode today. If you've got any other questions for Micaela, please don't forget to leave them in the comment section below, and we will try and get back to them. Hopefully, this is not her last time being on this channel, so we'll have other conversations in future. But please don't forget to hit that like button, leave your comments in the comment section below, subscribe. Okay, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date every time we drop a video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.